Another standard question we often see in a cybersecurity interview is, how do you keep up with trends in cybersecurity? This is an easy question to get right, but it's also a very easy question to do just kind of okay. And unfortunately, a lot of people just do okay at this question. This is your opportunity to shine as a cybersecurity analyst and to tell people in the interview that you're serious about your career. Yet often we see people in interviews going, well, I keep up with this blog, or I keep up with this podcast, or, I'm part of MFBI's InfraGard, and so I get their newsletter and I read that, and that's it. That's all they answer the question. But there's so much more you can go into this question. Remember, your interview is not about explaining your technical details. Your resume did that already. We already know that you can do the job, or we wouldn't have brought you in here in the first place. What we're trying to establish is if you're a good fit for our team. Are you going to provide asset to our company? Is the salary that I'm willing to give you worth what we're spending? This is really where it comes into play that separates somebody that's interviewing from a good or okay interview to a great interview. So how would you answer this question? Well, I would pick two items on your list that you probably have and go into detail with one of them. Now, I'm not saying go into detail about the vlog or the blog or even the podcast. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying go into detail with the situation. So you would provide an answer something like this. Well, I keep up with the Darknet Diaries and I really enjoy that. But recently there was blank on this vlog or blank on this, and then proceed to discuss it. Go into detail about the incident. Now, this is often another point where we see a lot of failures in the interview process. A lot of entry-level cybersecurity positions are defensive in nature. And a lot of brand new entry-level cybersecurity people, they want to go offensive. I'm not hiring a pen tester. I don't need all the details on how this malicious actor went into this unethical hack or how they got into the company. I mean, that's great, and I appreciate that. I really do. But how would you defend against it? You want to have a story almost memorized verbatim of what you want to say. Now, I say that with tongue in cheek. We don't want to practice it to death and then just memorize exactly what we're going to say. That sounds artificial in nature, and it's probably not going to go well because it sounds scripted. But I would have a good idea of everything that the vulnerability or the incident caused within the environment. And so let's just make one at random for example today. Let's say that we found or there was a recent publication for a Microsoft vulnerability, and we would name it just CVE 2018-237. Now, I used an old date, 2018, and I used 237, which I know is probably a real vulnerability, but I want to be honest with you and up front, I'm making this one up. So we put forward a vulnerability, we memorize the CVE number, and then we would talk about it. We'd say, well, I was recently on this blank, whatever web article or blog or vlog, and they discussed about this new vulnerability. And if I could remember it, I'd publish the CVE. If not, it's okay, we need to skip it. Remember, I'd rather have facts than made up decisions. And so I would go into depth with it. And I'd say, according to this new vulnerability, they really went into detail about how Internet Edge Explorer really has a new vulnerability that provides X. And I would go into detail about what the vulnerability was. But I don't want to go so in far depth that I'm spending 3 minutes talking about it. It needs to be quick and concise. For instance, let's say that the Edge vulnerability had something to do with remote code or a reverse shell, or the vulnerability allowed hackers to take control of the browser. So I would find out exactly what type of attack that was, and we would go into detail with it. So I would say something like, I don't know, well, there was this recent article about this Microsoft vulnerability associated with Microsoft's Internet Explorer and how this vulnerability could be reverse engineered or reverse scripted so that somebody could gain control of the user's browser. In order to remediate that kind of vulnerability, I'd probably recommend that our users update to the latest version of Internet Explorer and make sure we're not running any of the older copies in. I'd probably use group policies to push forward a patch as soon as possible because we really don't want that taking effect in our company. I really found it interesting because of X, Y, and Z. We'd want to have a good throughput on that. If, however, your mind draws a blank and you're all prepped and you just forget, always have a backup in mind. Social engineering is a really good one that you can kind of go into, and you could provide various facts about social engineering or even phishing or a latest phishing campaign that you saw. It's better to have something than nothing, even if that something is something as easy as phishing or spear phishing campaign that's going on within the system. Remember, we still want to talk about it. Bring up valuable points that you would do for the company or what you would recommend to the company. If you're argued with, never argue back. We had an interview process and we had talked to an employee, or I should say a potential employee, about public-private security. and he had mentioned that they encrypted with the private key. One of our interviewers thought, he's just nervous. We'll give him a helping hand, and said, you mean you're going to encrypt with public key, right? And the guy proceeded to argue with him for about 20 minutes. We reached out a hand to basically pull this guy out of the hole that he had dug for himself, and he kept on digging deeper and deeper into that hole, just proving to us that not only could he not be trusted in a process, because we already corrected him. And we're not going to ask a question or correct you in an interview if we don't know the answer. So in this case, the potential employee kept on digging himself into a hole to the point where it's like, we're just not going to hire you at this point. Why would we waste our time? You've already proven, one, that when I correct you, you're going to argue with me. I don't need somebody that's going to argue with me. I'm not going to correct you if I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to go through and maybe research a little bit more, but I'm definitely not going to point that out. So by arguing through this process and really sticking to their guns, it just proved that in an incident where they don't know what they're talking about, not only are they going to refuse to listen to reason, but they're going to continue to argue the point across and stick their feet in the ground just to say, I was right. This is never a good sign when I'm looking for somebody for my team. Remember, I'm looking for a team member. Cybersecurity is not a solo sport. I'm not looking for somebody to go off on a desk by themselves and hide in with a hoodie on and all that other stuff that we see on these movies. That's not something we do in real cybersecurity. I'm looking for somebody that's a team player. I'm looking for somebody that can add an asset to my team, somebody that can provide both thought and expertise, but also learn. And remember, you're an entry-level employee. I don't expect you to know a lot, but I do expect you to be able to learn from people around you. If I feel like you can't learn, or if you're going to argue, or you're going to dig your feet in and think you know better than my team members, then I'm definitely not going to hire you, because I'm going to put a team member to help you and guide you and mentor you to go forward. And the last thing I want to do is have you bucking at it and causing me all kinds of drama and issues throughout the process. Remember, I need team players, not drama in my cybersecurity team. I'm already undermanned. I never have enough budget. I never have enough manpower. Why would I bring somebody on that I'm not going to see as a good team player? I know I'm going to harp on this a lot, but you've got to remember, it's not about the experience in an entry-level interview. It's about, can you fit into my team structure? Would you be a good fit? That's what I'm looking for. Cybersecurity entry-level employees, they're all over the place. I don't have a problem hiring somebody like that, and you don't have the experience that you need to really confound or to push your agenda forward. I'm not looking for somebody to take charge and lead. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a follower, somebody that can be trained, someone that is trainable, and someone that's willing to not take the lead, but I felt like I've harped about that enough, but I want to provide you some good resources, because I often find that brand new cybersecurity entry-level people that are trying to break into the career, they've got maybe a vlog, or they've got a blog that kind of goes over teaching and training for cybersecurity, but they don't have good references. In your description, I'm going to give you some links for different blogs, different vlogs, even my own vlog, because why not? I teach cybersecurity, right? We can use that as a training resource, right? But I'm also going to do some articles that you should be subscription to. Remember, only pick one or two, go through them in depth, read up on them when they occur, and keep tabs on them. This isn't something that I want you to read or listen to just once. I want you to keep up with it. By listening to vlogs and blogs, what you're really getting out of it is you're getting a sense of how the wording goes. You're being adopted into the culture. The more you listen to it, the more you pick up the lingo, the more you pick up the little subtle hints that being in cybersecurity really is about. So I really want you to start listening more so to the vlogs and the blogs than reading about the articles. I'm not saying don't read articles. You 100% should read articles. They provide a lot of good information. But I am saying that if you're brand new to cybersecurity and you've never worked in this field, listening to some blogs or some people that are talking, especially if there's two of them together, really elevates your language skills and gets you to know how we're talking in the field. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but there are some incidents where we can definitely tell somebody that's brand new and somebody that doesn't listen to a lot of stuff and somebody that's born to be in cybersecurity. You want to give the appearance that you were born for cybersecurity.